evening, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown School Board meeting. We did call this meeting to order at 6:30 because the board did a tour of the field. So we're going to start off by standing and singing the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do we have any correspondence tonight?
We do. We have a couple things in the correspondence folder this evening. So the first piece is our agenda from our student session last Saturday, along with a wonderful photo of all of the students who participated. And the second piece in the correspondence folder this evening is the board will recall that I had shared with you that RSA 193-26A was changed. That included a new requirement that for us to give a high school diploma to a student, that their family had to submit a FAFSA form, which includes all kinds of financial information. There are a few of us superintendents that wrote a letter requesting that particular piece of the statute to be repealed. So I shared with the board that this was something I did not support. It certainly doesn't feel like local control. It doesn't feel like live free or die. And it feels like an awful punishment to withhold someone's diploma because their family chose to not fill out a financial form for the government. Right. So that's what's in correspondence.
Thank you, Brian. All right, commendations, good news. Hello. Hi.
Okay, so this week Student Council is having their canned food drive, and their goal is to collect 1,000 cans and 100 and is that my microphone? No. Can you hear that?
I can hear it.
Okay. $1,500 worth of products to donate to the Goffstown Food Bank. And if they complete that, they will get an extended lunch this Friday. Prom is May 26th, and the price for tickets is $50. And finally, the GHS Fine Lit 300 team placed first seed for online statewide competition and made it to the semifinals during the live competition on March 29th, which led at the Garponi Convention Center in Concord. FinLit's 300's mission is to advance financial literacy in the state of New Hampshire through an educational tournament which empowers high school students to apply classroom-based financial education in a contest of knowledge and skill. Students learn and study the topics of budgeting, spending, saving, investing, managing credit, and managing risk. So that seems pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And I have really bad allergies, so I sound stuffy. I apologize.
That's okay, no worries. 'Tis the season.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Lou.
you.
Wendy?
Yes, I'll add a couple of things. Over at Bartlett, the spring concert season has arrived for them, and this is the first time they've held it in person since COVID. All students are performing with their grade level in a special performance directed by Mrs. Price, the music teacher. Grade 3 performed 100 Hungry Ants, say that quick, which was well attended with over 50 spectators that went to that event. First grade will perform Up, Up, Down tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and second grade will perform Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, say that twice, tomorrow at 1:30. And the fourth grade will be performing Bebop at 10 o'clock on June 7th. So there's a little bit pushed back. Students and teachers at Bartlett that are involved in the math pilot programs, things seem to be going really well, so they wanted the board to know that. The PTA ran a successful spring book fair with sales over $4,000, which is a pretty remarkable price. And the Garden Club and Art Club over at Bartlett are up and running. Over at Mountain View, this week is Spirit Week, which is sponsored by Student Council. Today was Hat Day, and tomorrow is College Day. They also started their spring sports season last week. Miss Milligan threw out the first pitch for the baseball team last week, and rumor has it that Mr. Balke is making an appearance tomorrow at the game as well. Also, best of luck and safe travels to the 8th graders that are heading to Washington DC on Thursday morning. Though it's not a school-sponsored event, we have over 100 8th graders that are going. So a special thank you to Kirsty Hazelbaker and Alex Hill who have organized this. They have 10 chaperones that are going, and hopefully the weather holds out for the group. And at Maple, the Little Miss Dance was held on Saturday, and because of the number of students that were going, they actually held the dance over at Mountain View for the first time, and they were really pleased that they had plenty of room for dancing, snacking, and visiting. So they would like to thank their PFT group for hosting this fantastic event. Tuesday night, tomorrow, here at the high school at 7 o'clock, the show chorus will be performing, which is the 4th graders. Student Council is running an animal food drive this week, and all of the donations will go to the Bedford Shelter. And they are going to be celebrating parent volunteers this week as well. So lots of good things happening in the district.
Holy cow, thank you.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Anyone else? Commendations, good news? All right, seeing none, move on to public comment. I don't see any public comment. So tonight, we are going to have a presentation about the kindergarten research that Dr. Chisholm and Mrs. Stoyle have been working so hard on. So whenever you guys are ready, they're trying to figure out the technology stuff.
Technology.
We just can't get it to display on the screen.
I think you all have a copy of the handout.
Yes, everybody has a packet.
We might be old school in it here.
That's all right.
Hi, thanks for having me. In the fall, Brian asked me to take a look at the research to see what I could find out about the benefits, or not the benefits, but full-day kindergarten versus half-day kindergarten. And I must say that I was originally kind of thinking that, is there really any schools that don't do full-day kindergarten anymore? And I was pleasantly surprised to find out that there is still a mix out there of full-day and half-day kindergarten. So tonight I'm going to share with you some of what I found out. In your first slide, I started with some statistics. About 10% of students went to full-day kindergarten in the 1970s, which I realize is about 50 years ago now. And in 2016, it's over 80%, and likely even higher today. On your next slide, there are 10 Washington, D.C. require full-day attendance. 39 states require kindergarten availability, either full or half-day. However, not all states that require schools to offer kindergarten actually have requirements for students to attend. So what does the research tell us about full and half-day programs? So I'm going to share with you some of the most current findings of studies that I was able to find. The first one comes from the state of Indiana. They had increased funding for full-day kindergarten, and there was quite an interest in full-day kindergarten, so they had to assign students by lottery to either full-day or half-day sessions. And at the end of the year, they found that full-day kindergarten had a huge impact on reading at the end of kindergarten, with minority students and those with lower literacy skills having the greatest impact. The next study comes from Idaho, which one of the reasons that I included this in the presentation is the sheer number of students that were involved. There were over 19,000 part-day students and almost 15,000 full-day students, with larger percentages of at-risk students attending the full-day programs. So using a required reading test, the Idaho Reading Indicator for students in grades K through 3, researchers found greater progress with full-day students, though at-risk students did remain a little bit farther behind. After initially closing the gap in kindergarten, it partially re-widened for economically disadvantaged students moving forward. Researchers also found that children attending full-day kindergarten had higher self-confidence and greater ability to work and play with other children. The next study comes from Ontario, Canada, where full-day kindergarten was phased in over 5 years. So researchers looked at self-regulation, reading, writing, and number knowledge. And at the end of grade 2, data showed the lasting benefits of full-day kindergarten in all 3 areas. Full-day students were also more likely to meet provincial expectations for reading in grade 3. Half-day students were more likely to be in the below-average groups on measures of reading, vocabulary, and self-regulation. And again, this study of full-day kindergarten offered greater benefits for students with academic challenges. And I would like to point out on that slide that the very last bullet, greater benefits for students with academic challenges, really should have been placed above in the full-day program, not the half-day. So I apologize for that. This next information comes from the Education Commission of the state in 2016. Full-day kindergarten students showed greater gains in reading and math. Full-day kindergarten helps to close the achievement gap early. Full-day kindergarten allows children to receive more individualized attention and more time interacting with peers, all of which lead to positive outcomes, including higher scores on 3rd grade assessments. Another study came from Hahn and others who completed a meta-analysis of over 40 studies and found that at-risk populations show greater gains in math and verbal achievement, increase in social development, but for those gains to be sustained, supportive environments beyond kindergarten are important. In Manitoba, Canada, researchers compared 15 kindergarten cohorts through grade 9 and found improved grade 3 numeracy for middle-income students, improved grade 7 math for low-income students, and improved grade 7 math for girls. In a study of early word reading, which was letter knowledge, beginning and ending sounds, and sight vocabulary, it was found that children who attended full-day kindergarten were more likely to attain word reading skills, which predicted higher reading scores in 1st, 3rd, and 5th grades. Researchers also found less socioeconomically related gaps in elementary schools. The next information comes from the National Association of School Psychologists. They've seen higher academic achievement, particularly for at-risk students, higher self-esteem, fewer absences and grade retentions among those who attended full-day programs, and less inappropriate behaviors. The overwhelming majority of studies find positive outcomes for students attending full-day kindergarten programs, but not all. I found one study in California that found no difference between full-day and half-day student outcomes on standardized tests. I included the number of students in that also. You can see that it wasn't a huge study, but important to consider as well. So in summary, numerous studies have shown that full-day kindergarten programs generate positive academic benefits over half-day programs, particularly for at-risk learners. The question becomes, do the benefits last? Some articles suggest that early gains fade through the grades, even though we've seen in much of the research that I just talked about that they didn't. Some suggest the gains diminish anywhere between 1st and 5th grade. And that leads you to ask the question, why? Some studies suggest that full-day kindergarteners may not maintain an accelerated rate of improvement. Others note that schools intervene for those students that need help catching up. And it takes that long for the other students to catch up to their peers. Others propose that even if children are able to catch up to their peers, boosts in socio-emotional skills persist. Those who oppose full-day kindergarten cite these reasons: cost, worry that full-day programs are too academic, although most studies mentioned maintain the value of play-based programs. They worry that children may not be ready for a full-day experience in programs that are eager, and programs, if the children are too eager to meet high expectations, they may it may provide too much stress for the children to do so. So with that, I will turn it over to Kathy.
So considerations as we think about this moving forward, and I know there's been discussion about this and it's been talked about on CIP. Staffing is clearly a consideration. Space, we would need a significant number of classrooms added to our building in order to be able to accommodate full-day kindergarten. One thing to think about, our curriculum resources right now, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but our curriculum resources, we would need more curriculum resources. One thing to think about is that the curriculum resources we're using are designed for full-day instruction. So we might need more copies of things, but it wouldn't require a full revamp of curriculum, because right now what we're doing is adapting full-day curriculum to fit it in a half-day. And then there's a parent impact with childcare, and this can be, I would argue, probably make things easier for a lot more parents than it makes things harder for, but it could be a factor either way. And our enrollment would be impacted clearly, but one thing that I would like people to realize in this group, and I think I've talked about this with all of you before, is that without full-day kindergarten, there are many students who are having no opportunity to attend kindergarten at all because they need a full-day solution and they can't find one. They can't find wraparound care within Goffstown, and we're seeing that more and more, that we have students that are enrolled. We had a number of kids this last year that were enrolled but then pulled out over the summer because they couldn't find a wraparound program that could accommodate them within Goffstown. And programs have long wait lists right now. It's just the reality of our world right now, and they've been able to say, we're only taking full-time students, and they can fill up that way. So it has left people in a bind if they want to use our half-day program. So talking about what early child educators think, I think when I look at the opposition things that that slide that Athena ended on, the idea that it's too academic and concern about developmental readiness and that we'd be placing too much stress on students, I would argue that we would not, because we would be doing it in a developmentally appropriate way. We are a building that's dedicated to early childhood and that developmental level, and if you try to do it some other way, you're not going to get good results. So, and what the early childhood educators at Glen Lake discussed was that we would have more time to expand on instruction and for students to digest and reflect on learning. That it would give them increased opportunity for outdoor play, gross motor activities to support academic and social emotional learning. Increased time for guided fine motor activities with manipulatives, arts, crafts, and writing practice, and just developing those, giving you more time to develop all the different things that develop writing skills before going into first grade. There would be fewer transitions for students throughout the day. We have students who go to a before care program, then they come to us, then they go to an after care program, and it can be a long day, full of a lot of shifts along the way. It would offer an opportunity for a stronger relationship between teachers and students, and just because you're spending more time with them, a deeper understanding of students and their needs. Again, our curriculum tools are based on and developed for full-day kindergarten. There really aren't companies that I've found that are developing materials for half-day programs. They might offer ways that you can help hone it down to if you only have a half day, but even in the more recent ones, we've been seeing that they're even dropping that because it's just not so common anymore. And the full day would give more time to focus more deeply on the skills necessary to be a learner. And that's those, social emotional skills, learning to attend in a group, learning to shift your attention. But I think that that time to digest and reflect on learning and that kind of space to breathe within your day is a really attractive thing for teachers to think about working with students under those conditions. So as we discussed it as an early childhood faculty, there were no drawbacks to full day kindergarten that were noted. And we did this we actually talked about it a couple times, emailed to make sure we got everything, but this was our whole faculty, including our special educators and preschool teachers and our speech therapists and OT, and so everybody had a seat at the table in thinking about what full day would look like for kids. And in conclusion, we have this quote on our last slide. All-day kindergarten is not a magic bullet, but it can be fundamental in setting the conditions for better learning outcomes if it is done in tandem with smart improvements to what happens for our children in first, second, and third grades. Thank you. Questions, comments?
So does anybody have any questions, comments? No one? Nope. Was there a hand?
It was me.
Oh, go ahead, Carolyn.
I will say that I really appreciate that you touch on the impact that such a condensed day has on a young child. I have a kindergartner in Glen Lake for the first time this year, and as much as she's getting a great education, it really hit home to me when one of her first comments was, we just have to shuffle along constantly. It's like, I'm doing this and then I have to go to the next thing. And that was her kind of expressing, such a condensed day, which, it is such a significant impact on a young child, plus the amount of transition. So I like that you touched upon that, because I think that it really is something that kids experience when, having a little bit more time to expand on things and let some of the learning sink in is important to do. So thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Nicole.
So you mentioned that about 80% of students in 2016 were attending full-day kindergarten. I assume that's a national statistic, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have any information about sort of what percentage of New Hampshire communities are offering full-day kindergarten?
Everybody but 10.
I was going to say, I was thinking it was 10 communities that did not.
Did we have full day? So Goffstown is one of 10 communities in New Hampshire that does not have full-day kindergarten.
And New Boston would be another of the 10.
Okay. So our district is 2 of those 10 communities.
We make up 20%.
Right.
Thanks, Nicole. Go ahead, Shane.
I noted on one of the slides, I think one of the opposition one, it said that it was too academic. In your opinion, well, I'll offer my opinion, then I'll follow up and ask for your opinion. I would say that it would actually be less academic because there would be more room for some of that downtime throughout the day. And if I'm remembering back to when I went to kindergarten and I went to half day, it was always, you're going from one activity to the next, kind of like Caroline was saying, where there's not a lot of room to breathe and digest and reflect, which we all know is a huge part of learning, is being able to kind of reflect on what you're doing, even at a young age, and figure out how it can be better and how, we can move forward on different items, even if you're having a hard time with them. Would you share that opinion, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, in New Hampshire, our state law says that our kindergarten needs to be play-based. I would argue that any kindergarten teacher worth their salt would be making a game out of everything they do. And so while there are academic skills that are intertwined through all of that, it all has to be engaging and play-based if we want kids to learn. And so I don't worry about a full-day kindergarten program being too academic. I think that it would, you would be able to address academic skills in a child's own time and space in a more effectively.
I'm glad we agree. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Go ahead, Ellen.
Just one thing, and board members, there was a lot more data out there. You did a nice job of pulling it all down to the basics. There's a great deal of data out there in kindergarten addressing a lot more pros and cons that is available, like from the University of Nevada. There's quite a bit out there from them.
Go ahead.
Hold on. I used to not support full-day kindergarten because I saw it as nothing more than babysitting years and years ago. Then I learned different. A good program is a lot more. And hearing that we have children who are not able to attend even our half-day because obviously parents are working and they can't get them to and from all other types of child. That bothers me a great deal. But would not be a reason I would support a full-day program here. The reason I would support it is that overall is academically, socially, and emotionally beneficial to all children, and particularly those who are more at risk for whatever reason, okay, variety of reasons. I'm going to leave it there at the moment and see if anybody else has a question. I may raise my hand again.
All right, thank you, Ellen. Anyone else, questions, comments? Go ahead, Ginny.
I know when you presented to us, you talked about this statistics saying that a lot of the kids that had trouble earlier on in the early grades usually caught up by third grade. And I still think it's important to have the kindergarten, even though it shows that, oh, well, by third grade they've caught up to the regular population that didn't have full-day kindergarten. Because I'm thinking of the stress that kids have if they come in and they know they can't do what other kids are doing, and they feel uncomfortable and they can't keep up. And so I think it's important, even if they've caught up to everybody at that time, they haven't worked really hard and they haven't been stressed. I think it's important for them because then they've had a good experience to start school and continue, which gives them a better attitude about school going on.
Yeah, 3 years is a long time to be behind.
Right.
To feel behind.
Right. And I agree about you being myself being in kindergarten classrooms. A lot of the learning is with manipulatives, and a lot of that is playing, and so I think a lot of the times they don't even know they're learning because they have these things that are like toys they have at home, only they're doing different things with them that help them learn.
There's a lot of singing and dancing.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Ginny. Anyone else? Go ahead, Brian.
I would just say in general, I am a full supporter of full-day kindergarten. I think that this continues to be elusive for us. We will continue to be unable to do full-day kindergarten until we have more space. So we would anticipate needing about 6 classrooms if we went to full-day K. That would be with an increase in enrollment because right now we have probably 2 classrooms worth of kids that don't come to Glen Lake because their families have challenges. My own kids did not go to kindergarten in New Boston because we couldn't do the back and forth. We didn't have the support system. So I do think this is something that's critically important to us. I think it is an amazing benefit to kids, to their families, and there's a lot of, we've said a lot about statistics. There's also statistics that if you're not on grade level by 3rd grade, 80% of you never will be. So we've got to get them caught up early. We've got to make sure that we're laying a good, solid foundation, and it will absolutely pay benefits down the road. So I think we need to continue to keep the focus on this. We added full-day K to the CIP last year, so we'll have to see as we start that process what becomes of that. But this is something I do really support and wish that we could find a way to pull off.
Go ahead, Ginny.
I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to probably be really sorry that I asked. But where kids can now can be homeschooled, and there's absolutely no rules with homeschooling. And are there the same rules for charter schools and private schools as there are for public schools?
Charter schools, mostly yes. So
Okay.
charter schools are public schools. So
Okay.
they have some different requirements around staffing. They have a little more flexibility for hiring certified staff than your traditional public schools do.
Do they need, like, classroom sizes the same? Do they need all of the small little rules?
They're supposed to
The public
follow all
schools?
the other requirements of public schools.
Okay.
Non-public schools fall under a completely different category.
So if you go to a charter school that's not public,
All charter schools are public
Yeah,
schools.
okay.
So they're supposed to follow the same rules. They have more flexibility for hiring than traditional public schools, and private schools have different rules altogether.
okay. Montessori schools?
Montessori's would fall under that private umbrella, so they would have, there are still requirements, they have to comply with state requirements and the ed rules, but they don't have the same requirements as public schools.
So I'm just thinking, like, we're giving vouchers out to people that goes to all kinds of different schools, but then public schools have all of these rules. Is there a time and a place where we could have kindergarten, and instead of building a cafeteria and a gym and a library and a whatever, that we could just put up portables or classrooms? Because all of these other places don't have the same strict rules that public schools do? That's just a question where I'm wondering, where we're at a place now where schools are so different in the rule sets, could there be a place where maybe we could scoop kindergarten in without all of the rules?
I think some of them we would probably have a hard time to comply with. So when you, we would have to have a library, you would have to have an opportunity for physical education. We'd have to think about some of those pieces. But I think that we should try to figure out how to do full-day K, even if it's a less than perfect scenario. So we're probably never going to have the perfect scenario. There's probably never going to be the opportunity to have building aid that's going to come in with the state funding. Remember, Glen Lake School, the state paid for almost the entirety of that building. They paid for the first year of operational costs, and it still took 3 votes. So I do hope at some point that we'll be able to do this, and I think that we could be creative about how we comply with things. If we didn't have all of the other ancillary services at Glen Lake School, gym, library, cafeteria, kitchen, how would we feed all these kids? You know, you'd have to have some kind of a satellite program where you're basically trucking food in.
It would be a lot cheaper
I think
than
we're open
building.
to all of those things.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, would it be worth looking into some of those things to get kindergarten in, where other people get away with it? A thought.
Thanks, Jenny. Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kathy or administration, when we talk about staffing, how many actual more nurses do we need if we went full day?
I think we'd still just have one.
We don't need an additional one? How about teachers? Are we talking 4 additional teachers, 8 additional teachers?
I think you probably 6
I think it would
additional
be
teachers
6.
if you went
So
to full.
if we, in most years, we have about 8 sections of kindergarten. Is that still this year?
Yeah.
So if you think about 8 sections of kindergarten, we pull off with 4 classrooms. So you basically need to double the 4, so you'd need 8 classrooms, and then we would anticipate needing 2 additional sections. So that's where when I say 6 classrooms, that's where I'm getting that number from.
How many additional paras do we think we need?
Oh, so you need 6 teachers.
I would say at least 6 more paras.
Yep.
So, and then it would depend, the rest of our, like, we do have classroom paras in kindergarten, but then the rest of our para staff is driven through IEPs. So if full-day kindergarten somehow brought more kids in. I do think that, I don't know how many kids come into first grade that are, I'm sure there are some that, realize right away, like, oh, where have you been? We need to get some services in place right away. So that would be, any type of increase there would be driven by special education.
It'd be at least $1 million in staffing. So if we could figure out the classroom space, it's at least $1 million just to add the staffing for the teachers.
So just to kind of quantify it though, 6 teachers, 6 paras, how many additional specialists? Ballpark, I know we're depending on IEPs again.
I would think you'd need at least one more special ed teacher.
Yeah, I would say probably at least 2.
Yep.
So you'd probably be looking at 8 teaching positions and probably 6 para positions. So 8 teachers, salary and benefits, you're saying rough numbers of $100,000 a teacher, you're looking at 800 grand plus paras, it's $1 million. It'd be $1 million all
And
day
then
long.
we would need at that point, I think, some coverage for PE, because right now, we've been doing with motor groups that are run by our OT, whose caseload continues to grow. So we would need some support, not necessarily a full-time PE teacher, but we'd need visiting PE support or.
Yeah, and then obviously, depending on where this would occur, you're possibly talking about increased administration, because you're basically doubling the population of the school. Office staff, custodians, all of those kind of ancillary service providers would all need to be reviewed. But I think 6 classrooms and at least $1 million of staffing would be rough numbers.
You all set, Jared? All right, thank you.
Oh, well.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Are we at a point as a board where we might do well to create an ad hoc committee to look into options for how to bring this in, or at least for the board to consider, if not bringing something to the public? Look at options and look at costs, whether it's building or using the county office building over there, or the Y, or a combination of some office spaces around town. I have no idea, okay? I don't know what's out there. But maybe we should really start, well, we have some cost information, just ballpark, but maybe in order to be able to keep moving this forward, just putting it on CFP just sits it there. I mean, it should be there, but it sits it there. I'm wondering if we're not at a point where we need to be doing
To talk
a
about.
bit more, really looking into it, getting parents on board, a couple of administrators who know this stuff. I know I'd also like to hear from some first grade teachers, Kathy could probably, somebody could tell us the impact on first graders. I remember when we started the half-day kindergarten, the very first year, I don't remember who the principal of the kindergarten or first grade was, but the impact on the incoming first graders was significant about how much more advanced they were than previous years. I would imagine that that's the same kind of thing we get from kind of reaction and result of a full-day program. And if we have, and I'm sure we do, have an excellent elementary school program, I would be thrilled if any children who did not attend a full day were able to catch up with everyone else, and these kids kept going, being sort of ahead of the curve from norms around the state. I would be thrilled with that and would like to see us keep that going as a district. But how does the board feel about us doing, looking into options and costs and that kind of thing? I mean,
That
now,
might be a
sort it out.
retreat
That's what I was
discussion.
thinking.
Something we can discuss at retreat. PNC can talk about it. Go ahead, Jared.
I just remind the board and some of the new members, I mean, we talked about this starting in 2019. We've done a Space Needs Committee
Yep.
that came out with a full report of options that we've already listed for kindergarten. I've talked to several members of the public, and I put this to the board, we can talk about it at the retreat, but I would say I think we are at the point where we might want to have a non-binding resolution as a warrant article to say if we should start considering full-day kindergarten and put that to the town to see if that's something that we should start planning and looking at options on. I'm comfortable as long as it's non-binding to at least give us a direction on how well the community is behind that. Not put costs out there, not to say that we're going to move grades around or we're going to build a new school, just to see if there's an appetite for something to consider, knowing that we at least have some things that would cost an additional amount of money from staffing standpoint. That would be my recommendation as our next steps, because we've been talking about this now for 4 years, in and out of COVID. If we're really looking to make a determination, let's put it to the voters to see if we should be starting the process.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. Go ahead, Ginny.
I think kind of an answer or partial answer to Ellen's question is, being a first grade teacher is really tough because, and especially if you don't have all of your kids going to kindergarten or even the same kindergarten, is you have some kids that are coming in that are prepared because they've been to kindergarten, and you have other kids that can't tie their shoes, can't get their boots on, really don't know how to use the bathroom yet, and have had no training in letters or letters, numbers or anything. And so you have some kids that really need to move along or they're going to be bored, and you have the other kids that just need to learn how to come to school, sit down in their desks, and take care of themselves before they even start doing that other stuff. So you've got just like a huge population that you're dealing with. So all of these kids went to the same kindergarten. They would come into first grade having all of those skills and would be able to sit down and start doing the things that they need to do in first grade, instead of having, part of the kids just really behind and feeling so out of touch with what everybody else is doing, and, feeling like they're just the kids that, don't have it and are backwards. And why do that to kids? Why do that to a little kid? Because certainly it's not going to give them a good feeling about continuing in school. And sometimes kids just carry that all along because they get that reputation in kindergarten, first grade.
And I think the biggest danger is they get that reputation with themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you, Ginny. Go ahead, Nicole.
I love Ellen and Jared's idea of let's just keep seeing how we move this forward. I would say, though, if we want to put something on a ballot, I would really want to make sure that we, as a board, do some education for the community about the big benefits and few drawbacks of this sort of program. I don't think the general public necessarily knows how important it is to students' education. So I would think it'd be very important to make sure people are educated about that before it goes to a vote.
Right. Go ahead, Dan.
So let's bring it down to the money for a moment. All right, so the numbers I've heard, given that the tax rate is somewhere around 6 to 6.5 cents per $100,000, we're asking for a minimum. You said $1 million. I think it's closer to 1.2, just for that. So, and we got other expenses, things of that nature. So if you want to take that 6 and you multiply it by, let's say, 15, just for giggles, you're asking people for 90 cents to add to the tax rate, and that's just to do the expenses. We haven't spent the money to get the desks, the chairs, and the infrastructure and the technology yet, and that's going to be significant. So we have to keep that in mind, that we're saying, okay, we want full-day kindergarten for these extra pieces, just the extra pieces. Now, we haven't included, because we already pay the teachers we currently have to do both classrooms, so that doesn't expense up. I don't think we need more administration. I haven't heard anything else. If we need anybody else to support, in essence, almost doubling the staff. So we got to kind of consider that. So I'm looking at maybe even $1 on the tax rate. Average house somewhere in Goffstown is going way up, so $350 plus. So you're talking about a tax bill, increasing your tax bill $350 a year every year for a while. Just the numbers.
Yep. All right, thanks, Dan. Ginny?
But I think, Dan, unless you start putting something out, we'll never get it passed. Because we know in other things that we've tried with schools, it takes 3 years to pass. So unless we start putting it out there, start educating people, it's going to be the next 10 years before we get into it. So I think if we put it on the ballot and start letting people know we really need this, And if you've been reading things by our constituents about the library, they say they rather spend the money on schools instead of the library. So let's put them to the test and see if they really want to do that. You
I
know?
think this could be a good conversation for the retreat to really make a plan.
Yeah.
So, is there any other
Yeah,
comments?
so in my comment, Ginny, had nothing to do with whether we do announcements or not.
Oh, I know,
was
I
just
know.
bringing
I'm just-
everything back
Yeah.
to say, we got
Yep.
money. If we're going to do announcement, let's just get it all on the table, so when the budget comes forward, there's no surprises. I don't like the surprises. Just put it
Yeah.
right out there in the front.
Right.
And say, okay, if we're going to do this, pony up your wallet for something, there is an ongoing cost.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. We've spent a lot of time talking about this. I'm sure Dr. Chisholm and Mrs. Doyle would like to go home. Thank you. Is there any other questions?
One question,
Yeah.
somewhat related to this. Ms. Doyle, what is a graduation at Glen?
I got it. I got a few.
As long as there are no more snow days, I
Oh,
can
there's,
give you
let
an
me help
answer.
you out. There will be no more snow. Got the back.
On the back. That's
Thank
so
you.
funny. You're welcome. So thank you both for all the time and research, putting together this presentation. The board
you.
appreciates you coming out tonight and sharing this with us. Thanks. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to approving April 3rd school board meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to read through them? Anybody see anything? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the minutes of April 3rd, 2023 school board meetings.
All right, thank you, Jenny. Do I have a second? By Nicole. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining,
One abstention.
one abstention, and 8 yeses.
I was not in attendance.
Yes, thank you. All right, committee reports, A and F.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt and accept a total manifest value of $2,386,903.28.
Thank you, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Caroline. Go ahead, Dan.
We have some payroll, taxes, benefits, $1.9 million. We have 4 sped payments over $5,000 for this. Couple of out-of-districts, each over $8,000, Lighthouse School and the Birch Tree Center. We have some contracted services, $7,100 for Johnson ABA Consulting, and Miracle Speech Farm, $5,500. General expenses, we pay the SAU, $111,495. That's this particular assessment. That budget is, we talked about it last time, whether it's going to be something the voters, wait, let me stick on this. Goffstown Truck Center, $110,600 for the busing. Stand Tech, which is our heating controls, the RFP and the specification, $30,800 plus. Dead River for propane, $20,000 and change. Electricity from Eversource, $19,000. We bought 28 iPads, filters, some AP class registration cost on the credit card for $15,700. The Home Depot Pro, which is our custodial supplies for 10 grand. Arbiter pay, you recognize that? That's for our official fees, officials that we pay fees to. This goes into the pool, 10 grand. Staples, classroom furniture, supplies. We bought some desks at MVMS, $9,800. Citywide facility custodial contracted services. We still have custodial staff that aren't part of our staff, but we still have to clean the schools, so we pay contracted pricing to do that. And we bought a bunch of stuff at Amazon, books, supplies, equipment for $8,400 and plus. Food service, food and commodities, $14,665. And Scott gave me some really bad news about chocolate milk. Something about not allowing it for grades under high school, but it's a proposal or something, so I don't know about that. That would make me disappointed.
I mean, it's going through the federal hearing process, the USDA.
It's devastating. So does anybody have any questions for Scott on the manifest? All right, seeing none, I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. Is that we're gonna talk about the rest of the stuff later, Scott, right?
I don't know, are we?
Oh, nothing about the update on the,
It's just the, with the press box, I think that one is not
It's-
later on, is it?
I don't see it
No.
later on the agenda.
Yeah, so, and I apologize, that's not on the board's agenda, but as I had mentioned in A&F, and I believe I mentioned to the full board that we are putting on an addition to the press box. We were very fortunate to have several people, several companies and individuals provide either discounted or free services, one of which was Roger Dignard, is a retired architect from New Boston. He did all of the specifications for the press box. I sent those specifications out to 4 contractors. Two of them said that they were too busy to do the construction over the summer, so therefore we got 2 bids. One of them was substantially lower than the other. Uncle Barry's Contracting, or Construction, I should say, came in at a quote of $65,000, largely in part because this gentleman has students who attend here, students who are on athletic teams, and he wants to leave a legacy so that he's not having any profit. He also solicited donations and discounts from numerous businesses in Goffstown and elsewhere. This press box, the windows are being donated by Harvey Industries. The window installation is being donated by Romeo Windows. On Point Concrete, Lee Sperry donated almost the slab foundation. John Neville did the site work at a significantly reduced price. So Uncle Barry's Construction did a lot of the background to get that price super, super low. So with that, we normally would go through an RFP process per your policy, DJB. Anything over $50,000, we put out what's called a request for proposals. In this case, based upon the time that we have to build this, and also the fact that I did send these specifications out, I would ask that the board consider waiving your formalized RFP process and essentially awarding this contract to Uncle Barry's Construction for $65,000 to proceed with the construction of the press box.
And that would also include the roof, the re-roofing of the current press box? And
Yeah, the $65,000 is not only the addition, but it's a metal roof on the existing and the new press box, and also taking down the existing siding and putting up new siding that will match. And for those of you who were on the tour before, the old windows are going to get replaced with new windows, and there'll be new lighting out there as well, in terms of on the building. That price does not include the electrical. That is part of another bid to, was about a $6,000 add-on with our electrical on the field to do the electrical work in that addition with the sub panel and everything. So that's already part of another bid that we have.
so does anybody have any questions for Scott? We have a motion. Did you give everybody a copy of this?
No, I apologize. I
Thought I handed these out, but I guess I didn't.
So that's, was it,
Yeah.
those of you who are not on A&F, I'm sorry.
So I'll motion to waive the purchasing policy DJB, which requires an RFP process for projects in excess of $50,000, and to accept the $65,000 construction cost from Uncle Barry's Construction for the GHS press box addition project based on the solicitation of competitive bids.
All right, do I have a second? Second. By Ellen.
Can Denise catch up for a second?
Yeah, I'm gonna wait. So on the back of your form should be the motion that Caroline just read. Okay, or we can keep that. And then, who seconded? Ellen. All right. Are you all caught up, Denise? Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. So any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay, we're unanimous. So you just gave everybody the
Yeah, I'm
the
sorry, I thought I
sheets and
handed it
stuff.
out
No, that's fine, they can look through it later and
Yeah,
any
and just for the record, the other bid that we did get was for $141,000. So, as you can see, I mean, there's a significant, I'm not gonna speak to the bid that was 141, but the gentleman who did submit the bid, Uncle Barry's, as you can see, he did a lot of soliciting of donations and stuff. While we're on that subject, the school board did go for a tour, and I just wanted to kind of let the public know that the construction is progressing nicely on the turf field. They'll be doing additional construction this week and next week, putting down base materials. It is likely that the turf itself, they'll start that installation in about 2.5 weeks. They're also supposed to deliver the bases for the light poles at the end of this week or next week. So it's gonna look like it's progressing pretty well, but I want the public to know that this is probably not gonna be ready till like mid-June, late June, in terms of when we can actually use it. So a lot of it is dependent upon the light towers and the fencing, and the lights are something that's gonna take a lot longer than the field itself. So just wanted to let folks know that. But things are going well, curbing is up, and we're progressing nicely.
All right, thank you, Scott. All right, so moving on to Budget Committee. Any new news, Jared?
No meetings.
No meetings.
No meeting scheduled.
Nothing scheduled, all right. PNC, Retta.
Yes, our next meeting is May 1st at 6:15. Just a reminder, I think Brian will be talking about this later, but this week is Volunteer Appreciation Week, National Volunteer Appreciation Week, so it's not just the schools, it's everywhere. So if you have the opportunity to thank volunteers, we know that volunteers make our schools work in many ways, which Brian will talk about later. We talked about the retreat briefly this evening. Just a reminder, this is on the schedule for June 19th at 3:00 p.m. at St. A's, so just make sure that's on your calendar.
At 3 p.m. you said?
3:00 p.m., yes. And also, I did mention at the last meeting about doing videos for teacher appreciation. I haven't gotten the details, but I'll get that out, and we'll just make time for you to go in and record your appreciation of faculty and staff. That's it.
All right, thank you. Policy review, we did meet last week. You'll have first reads further down in the agenda, but our next meeting is May 8th at 5:30 at the SAU. C&E?
We did meet. I'll just go quickly over some things we went over. Kurt McDermott came and spoke to us about the GAP program. He is leaving the GAP program, but he's done a wonderful job for the past 3 years. There have been some changes to the GAP program because it's now credit-bearing. The NHDOE now is paying for most of it because it's credit-bearing for our students. In-person classes in the fall and spring are given 5-point credits for the 10-week fall and 1 credit for the 15-week spring. One other good thing that it's offering now is it's offering lifelong credit to students, so that helps them get along on either their trade careers or their ongoing community college or college careers. Some changes have been made in HiSET. HiSET is not recognized around the United States, so they're going to GEDs in a lot of instances now, so that kids that have gone the HiSET way have not necessarily, when they've applied to other states, it's not recognized, so the GED, however, is. And the only thing that has to be funded now, our stipend program that we instituted this year, the teachers were included, so they're getting paid by stipend now. So the only money that is used from the district is the administrative assistant and the program director. So the teachers are getting paid fairly out of this now, and the only district money is those two positions. So that is that. And the other presentation that we had was from Goffstown High School. Joyce Lewis, Kim McCann, and Betsy Mydrick came, and they gave us a talk about the grading system. It was very detailed, and it's something that they're working on. Class ranking basically was the topic, and it's ongoing. There's really nothing that they're deciding now. It was just something that they were putting out for us to know that they're considering over the next couple of years. A lot of things are changing from the way they used to be happening at colleges, and so they're looking into ways of making changes to get up to date possibly over the next couple of years. So there's nothing other than just talking at this point on that. So, and our next meeting is May 22nd at 6 p.m. at the SAU.
All right, thank you, Jenny. All right, SAU policy, Shane.
We will meet Wednesday night at 5 p.m. to review our last few policies for the year.
Awesome, thank you.
If we remember.
Yes, we will remember.
Thank you.
All right, and
I was talking about.
Yes, I know. The SAU board meeting is Wednesday at 6 p.m. at the SAU office. If you can't make it, please let Denise or I know. All right, and now superintendent's report.
Just a few quick things this evening. So Retta mentioned Volunteer Appreciation Week. We've worked this year with the Select Board, and there's going to be a hashtag Goffstown Volunteers that people can recognize, and we'll have some information put up on social media hopefully tomorrow. But when you get to the staffing sheet this evening, you'll see there are 4 new sports coaches that are all volunteers, every one of them. So volunteerism is alive and well, and we'd like to thank everyone who donates their time in support of the Goffstown schools. So the kindergarten celebration will be on Monday, June 19th. We wanted to make sure we got that information to you. That's also the same day that New Boston Central School will hold their 6th grade promotion. That's also our retreat day. So Mrs. Kohler and I will be at the retreat. We will not be able to attend the New Boston promotion, but that's quite all right. I think 15 years, I don't think I've missed one, so we'll probably do. We held today a short new board member orientation session. I'd like to thank Nicole for coming, as well as our new board member from New Boston who was able to attend. There is a new New Hampshire School Boards Association orientation, but it's not until the second week of May, I think it is. So we wanted to at least get a little bit of a leg up to make sure that we're offering support to our new board members. And I think this was either our second or our third year of doing this. So we refined the agenda, we expanded a little bit, and much appreciation to Nicole and for Kelly Sosha for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
It was fun. So we had, last week I was notified by the Deputy Commissioner that we have one of the highest response rates for the Department of Ed's Bright Futures survey that we sent out. So we appreciate all of our faculty as well as our parents who have filled that out. And according to Christine Brennan, we have one of the highest response rates in the state. So the window's still open. I'm not sure how they know that already, but she did. So I'd like to thank our families for participating in that.
Inquiry, is that why we're randomly chosen, like every year? for stuff?
Yeah, my random chosen issue has to do with the NAEP assessment.
Yeah.
That's the one that we've been randomly assigned every
year.
single year without fail. And unfortunately, the NAEP assessment is one that we don't even get any local data. So we can't even look at how our kids did, how our schools did. It's all, it's unfortunately, it's not a great use of our time.
But kudos to those respondents for
Absolutely.
assisting in shaping whatever that was.
Agreed. Last week, I had the opportunity to give public comment at the state board meeting, and I was bragging about our student rep session that we did last Saturday, so I shared that with the state board. They were very interested. The commissioner was pretty excited, thought it sounded like a great idea, and I'm sure next year, if we invited him, that he would come. And my last piece is, this is the week before vacation. I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful vacation next week, and hope everyone has a beautiful, wonderful week. The weather does not look anything like last week, unfortunately, but would like to wish everyone a nice vacation and come back reprieved with a little rest and ready to finish up the year strong.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
No, moving on. All right, next is old business. So subcommittee assignment review and approval. So thank you, everyone, for getting them to me. I see New Boston has given us also their representatives. So please look through here. A few of you I emailed over the weekend, asking you if you could be on a committee. I heard back from some of you, but not all of you. So if you see your name in a spot you weren't sure, let me know. We can change things around, but we need to approve this tonight, so just take a look. Yes, Dan?
GESS and GEA for negotiations. By the way, I'm eligible for both. I don't know if you want to keep it split.
That's right, well, you had just put GESS.
That's in the past?
No, I mean on your sheet that, on your
I
thing
didn't
that
do
you
my
text,
sheet
you
this year. I
emailed
talked to
me.
you.
You emailed me.
And I put GESS on it?
I'm almost positive. So it doesn't
I think
matter.
it's just the same as ZIP. I would not say not GEA, but that's totally okay. Whatever you want to do, you can either.
Well, nobody's meeting this year.
We're not having
for
a contract
contracts.
negotiation this
So
year,
next
so
year, if you
2 more
want
years.
to,
Yeah.
if you
So,
want to be on both next year, we can.
It doesn't matter. You can actually take me off and put Caroline on if she wants to do both.
She's on GEA.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any questions, comments? Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, the CIP committee alternative probably needs to be somebody on the board, i.e. my first name's wrong.
What? Oh, I didn't. Oops, okay, sorry.
And
I spelt it right everywhere else. It was a typo.
I don't know who it was, Heather. I'm not going to
It
look
was
at
probably
anybody.
me because I sent it to you, right? I'll take the blame, but I spelled your name right everywhere else.
You did.
Anyone else? Is everybody good with this? So for new board members, this is the committees you're on just for this year. So next year after election, we do this all over again. So at any time you can change, if you like a committee you're on this year, you can be on it, after that. The alternates, those people, Denise will send you information for those committees. And if somebody on that committee cannot come, they let Denise or I know, and we reach out to you, and then you would fill in for that spot. So that's what an alternate means, and you'll get the agenda and all the information. So if you do have to go in, you have an idea of what's going on. So everybody, there should be alternates for all of them. So if everybody's good with this, any questions, Dan? I'll need a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you, Dan. Do I have a second? By Shane. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Okay, we're unanimous. Thank you. All right, the next one. So also this time of year, we do school board ethics policy, which is BCA. It is in your packet. It goes through basically everything you do on your oath. But board members need to know this policy, and we are reviewed every year on it. And then the second part is you have everybody's contact information for new board members and stuff. And if there's any changes, just let Denise or I know. Yeah, go ahead, Shane. Is there something off?
I just have a middle initial that's unnecessary.
Okay.
I'm just get rid of that.
Well, for
no
fun,
one else
I
has
have a
one.
middle initial that I find is necessary, but it's not in here.
I don't know why it's there, but you can get rid of it.
All right.
She wanted to put the J
I'm
on
not that
mine and
formal.
missed it.
So that is for all board members to have.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
quick question.
Yep.
Superintendent Balke, looking at the teacher representatives, is it only people from GEA that can be part of that, or members from
No.
GESS can also be part of this? So
By
paras or anything along
policy,
those-
your policy says teacher.
Okay, so it can't be paras or anything along those lines?
I think we would need to look at the composition in the policy. I think it specifically says teachers.
Okay.
But we have 3 teacher rep positions open. So there are multiple opportunities. If any teachers are interested in serving on the board, we have room for an elementary, a middle school, and a high school rep.
And it could be a non-GEA member.
Correct. I think-
Absolutely.
Yeah, I missed.
Right.
Does not have
Doesn't have to be
a-
part of the bargaining unit, but I just didn't know if members of a para association could be, or a specialist could be considered a teacher rep, or a rep.
I think that would require a policy change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we ever get the stipend okay?
We did not. Scott, we haven't pursued the teacher rep stipend any further, have we?
No, not that I'm.
That was something that we did discuss at one point in time.
Right. I think that was.
Then that had to be on the contract also?
So we would have the ability to work with the association if we wanted to add that after the fact. So I think we would be able to do that if we wanted to.
Did we ever want to look into that?
I think we had a discussion on that, didn't we?
We've had a couple of discussions about it. Again, this might be something else to discuss at the retreat as a short agenda item,
Sure.
but I think Jared's suggestion might be a good one, you know, especially given that we have 3 positions and we have 0 teachers sitting.
Right.
It might be helpful
Be
to
able to
think,
open up the
might be able to
pool.
open it, cast a little wider net.
Right.
So I think it's always helpful to get, when we have discussions, to have input from the people that are at the schools.
Right, absolutely.
Agreed.
All right, so moving on, we
Can I
have.
ask a question?
Oh, sorry, Dan.
Sorry, retreat. We
Yes.
keep mentioning it. Do we have a date that I have missed?
June
It's
19th.
Monday, June 19th, 3 PM at St. Anselm College.
Thank you.
Still in the science, the political science.
Yeah, so
building.
as of right now, we will be in
Oh,
the
the
Institute
last
on
one.
Politics. That same building down the hill.
Oh, political.
We're going to do it the political side,
Yep.
in the same corner on the left.
We hope to be using that same space.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on, we have some first read policies. These will come back in 2 weeks for questions, but all the red is everything that we added or changed. So you guys can read through them and we'll come back in 2 weeks for those. All right, yeah.
Anything in there specific that has been changed that we should pay attention to? Anything?
There was some stuff,
Oh, KFR, for instance, which we're just increasing the fees.
yeah, there was increasing
That's
fees.
It's not significant, but it's significant if you want to think about it.
Right.
If
Some
you
of them
want
was
someone to say,
just-
hey, you changed it from $35 to $40 or
Yeah,
something like
I'm
that.
not concerned about that.
Okay.
More the language, okay.
Yeah, a lot of it was cleaning up to what we're doing. We got rid of some stuff because it was recommended by the New Hampshire School Boards Association. So it should have it all in there in the red, and then the minutes, I think, are on the website. And the draft one? No?
But I can send the draft out.
Okay, we can do that, and you can see
draft?
what we talked about.
Policy, so we can see what it is. No, I'll read these, I'll just read these.
Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, and then we'll come back in 2 weeks.
We did change from contests to competitions.
Yes, we did change in one of the policies to make it clearer. So just cleaning up and stuff. All right, school staffing. Go ahead,
So
Brian.
on the staffing sheet, there's a notification for a leave of absence for Susie McQuaid through the rest of the school year, so we wish her the best. For your approval, we have a leave of absence for Mrs. Audley here at the high school. That will be for all of next school year. Do you want me to do these in chunks or keep going?
Yeah, let's just do one at a time, so
Okay.
we'll need a,
Inquiry on the leave of absence, usually you kind of tell us why we're keeping that one on hold for the person, if you can share.
Yeah, I believe she's going to be out with a child for the whole year, and we would hope to get her back after that year because she's an excellent teacher. So she has the ability to ask for the leave of absence within the contract, and she's an outstanding teacher, and I would hope to get her back.
I move to approve Ms. Audley leave of absence.
thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Caroline. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Okay, go ahead.
So the next batch are 3 resignations: Christy Dunn, Stephanie Shepard, and Jen Crowley.
Is there a reason they're all special ed teachers?
No, I think just probably bad luck and bad timing and tough hiring.
Two of them are at the same school.
Yep.
All right, I'll need a motion for these resignations. Go ahead, Nicole.
I move to accept the resignations of Christy Dunn, Stephanie Shepard, and Jennifer Crowley.
Thanks, Nicole. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Caroline. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Go ahead, Ellen.
Is it, it would probably be a non-public, but is there a reason for these leaving?
No.
They just don't want to come back here, or don't want to keep teaching?
Yeah, so we probably wouldn't have a lot of detail that we could get into, but unfortunately, we lose staff members, we gain staff members.
Well, I'm concerned that it's same department in one school, 2 of them.
Well-
It's not usual.
Yeah.
Could signal something. Okay.
Or it signals nothing, and let's not
Yeah.
have members of the public thinking that there's some kind of a signal that's not there.
Special ed has a lot of burnout, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a tough job.
It is a tough job.
And so there's been questions, says, do we know if exit interviews were conducted?
Exit interviews are offered for all professional staff.
Right, but we don't know if these were actually executed. We can ask the question in non-public.
And those would have until the end of the year to do the exit interviews.
Okay, and it
So-
would be initiated by the employee, not the
We
employer?
ask them if they want to do an exit interview. Mrs. McGrath sends all of them
Okay.
an inquiry.
Cool, thank you.
All right, teacher nomination.
So we have, this is a art teacher to replace Mr. Kilmister, who is retiring, so we're happy to welcome Jessica Zilek to Mountain View.
So I'll need a
Move to
motion.
approve, just because I like it, Mountain View.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Ellen, second by Nicole. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Okay.
The next one is our GAP director, and this is Ashley Barisi, who is one of our great counselors here at Goffstown High School, so she will be replacing Mr. McDermott in that role. And as her first year, she'll come in a little lower than the salary already, so that's all within budget.
Move to approve Ashley Barisi for the GAP director.
Thank you, Ellen. Do I have a second? By Retta?
And the question was,
Yep.
I was going to ask the question, but then you said she was already an employee, so that part of the question went away. But her qualifications to be a GAP director, is it different because she's in a different area right now?
Yeah, so the GAP director has more oversight. You have to do sort of grant management, so there's a couple of tasks that Mr. McDermott is going to do some training.
And he seemed to have done,
Oh, he figured it out really fast.
Yeah.
And he was able, you'll remember this year that we cut around $40,000 out of the budget because
Yep.
Mr. McDermott was able to get the state to pay for all of our
because they get
teachers.
credits now.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome job.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second.
I have just a quick
Go ahead,
question
Retta.
before we vote.
Yep.
Is this just a part-time
It
job?
is.
So she'll maintain?
She's going to still continue to be a full-time counselor here at the high school. This is just a little part-time add-on to that.
Thanks, Retta. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. And the last,
And the last one, again, this is a perfect example of what Retta had brought up earlier. four volunteers, all new to us, at least one of them being a former student. These are great kids that are going to be part of our athletic program, all as volunteers.
Awesome. I'll need a motion for the co-curricular sports nominations.
So moved.
By Ellen, do I have a second? By Nicole. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous.
And the last piece that's listed on the, at the bottom of the staffing sheet, the board will recall that we've had some preliminary discussions about the administrative assistant review that Mrs. McGrath, Mrs. Taylor, and Mr. Gross had been working on. And part of the outcome of that is, you'll recall that we have 4 retirements happening this year. That's just, unfortunately, I think bad luck, bad timing for us, but we used it as an opportunity to evaluate all of our administrative assistant positions. And we have a recommendation to make one of those vacancies into a supervisor position. We've gone through the numbers, and this is all within budget dollars. Mr. Gross, you want to weigh in on this a little bit, but what we would be asking the board to do is make one of the vacant administrative assistant positions into a new supervisor position, with all of the positions in total being within budget.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so essentially, it's a little bit more than one position. It's like, we have part-timers, et cetera, so we're looking at, it's 1 point, it's a little more than that. But anyway, it is cost neutral. In doing our analysis and our focus groups of all the admin assistants, we feel that there would be tremendous benefit of having a supervisor supervise all of the admin assistants, and to essentially ensure their cross-training, ensure their professional development. There's a term in operations management called load leveling, where we can move work around in between buildings. Right now, it's kind of siloed, where work is kind of done in a building, but it's not done elsewhere. With the technology that we have right now, work can be done in between buildings. A lot of the work that we do also is very specialized. So Power School student information systems in particular requires a great degree of knowledge and training and reinforcement. So we do have at least one person in each building. In some cases, at the high school, we might be lucky and have 2. But if a small building has a need, expecting someone who, let's say Bartlett for an example, someone who has never touched it in 3 months to then all of a sudden be very proficient at that is challenging. Same thing with payroll. Payroll's a pretty complicated process. Now the backups, if someone's out for a week, or God forbid it's a medical issue where they're out for a month, there'll be someone at another building who can help them. But with that, there needs to be a level of oversight. And what we're seeing is, from what the analysis that Kate, Laura, and myself did, having a supervisor who's dedicated to those individuals will be a big benefit to our district. I know I've spoken to other business administrators. I know, Brian, you've spoken to superintendents. This is something that's very common in the private sector, not so much in the public sector, but I think one that's long overdue. Right now, our current our admin assistants are supervised by a variety of different people, whether it be principal, assistant principal, in some cases special ed facilitator, and this is also going to free them up from doing certain tasks. So I think the roles of all of our administrators have changed, and I think this is going to be a big benefit to all involved. So with that, we are looking to have a supervisor for these folks. I'm pretty sure that I've mentioned this before. This is not going to be a 1 year or 6 month when we're going to fix everything. This is going to take years. I think 2 to 3 years for us to get where we want to be with that level of training and the backup, et cetera, and then leveraging the technology that we already have. So again, it's a cost neutral in the sense of what we're going down in terms of not filling some of the jobs that we have. We did also find, the question might be, well, how are you able to do that? Well, we found that in some of our buildings, say the high school is one of them, we are able to do that with these vacancies. So with some of the technology that we have brought on, we're able to do some things more efficiently as well. So one quick example of that would be e-registration. So I just want you to think about this. In the past, it might take this high school 2 weeks to do registrations, where it was the paper, mailing everything out and all. Now we do everything online, and everything is much easier. When you did the paper process, people would have to key in all the emergency contacts all over again. Now it's all done, automatically. So we've seen some efficiency gains through technology, and this is another way of kind of staying on that track. I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, Ellen had her hand up. Go ahead.
Is this a new administrator's position?
This would not be an administrator, this would be a non-union employee. So they would be a supervisor of the administrative assistants, but it wouldn't technically be another
Would
administrator.
this person be an administrative assistant as well?
This person would still have tasks that they would do, yes.
As an administrative
Yep.
assistant? Okay.
Yep.
And where would they be located, since we have people at all our buildings?
So the where would they be located is an interesting question. We haven't decided on that yet.
I would think they'd have to be going building.
They're probably going to
quite
be, yeah, we would anticipate that they would be itinerant, but we haven't decided, is there a permanent home for them? Where's their desk or office going? We haven't gotten quite that far yet. Probably, there's a good chance it would be here, but I wouldn't commit to that yet.
Thanks, Alan. Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I assume that this is going to be a district position and not tied to a specific school.
Scott, would you put it in the district line?
Yeah, I would.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, good question.
Go ahead, Ginny.
If they're new people, how would they know the schools if they're going to be located in one school?
So if it's somebody new from the outside, they're going to need to get acclimated to every building, every system that we use, every platform that we use, et cetera. So I would think if it's someone from the outside that they're going to have a learning curve, that they're going to need to get up to speed pretty fast. We have great talented people here. I would hope that we would have some good candidates within our existing staffing.
Do you think that you have four?
I do.
Okay, because I'm thinking this is going to take a long time for someone to be that acquainted with 4 different buildings for 4 people to do that.
I think to come into this role as an outsider might be difficult to do, because we're looking for someone who has expertise in a number of functions that Scott just mentioned: payroll, certainly student registration, information in Power School, running certain reports. So we're going to need somebody who has that function. They understand those functions. And that could be someone who hasn't worked for us before, but I would think that that's probably unlikely.
Because all the schools are different too, so.
They're different, but part of what we're looking to do is to standardize a lot of these functions and to build in the redundancy. So Scott used the example, if our administrative assistant who does payroll at Bartlett is out, there's no one else to do payroll. So we want to make sure that we have a backup, and then, so we have a secondary person, and then we have kind of like a tertiary, that there's a backup to the backup. And the model that we're conceptualizing, that happens between buildings. So to have someone who has an intimate knowledge of how to do payroll for different schools, we'll have to have them doing that on an ongoing basis. They can't just do it once in a while. You're going to just pick it up and do payroll. It's probably too complicated to do that.
Yeah.
So we're going to need somebody who knows all of our systems, knows our platforms, knows our buildings, knows our players. And I think we have some wonderful people right here already. So I would hope that one of those people might end up being the person that we would look at for this role.
Thanks, Ginny. Go ahead, Dan.
How many
Jared.
total individual positions are we talking about here?
So currently, we have 18.
0.25.
Yep, so we have 18 full-time positions and 1 part-time position.
Okay.
So we're looking at that to be 1 supervisor plus 17. So it's
0.25.
basically, at the
Okay.
FTEs are equivalent. We're going to see probably a slight shift on a few of these positions, which will allow us to make up a little bit of the money. Obviously, the supervisor would make a little more, so we would be able to do that cost neutral based on this analysis.
And also, Dan, recognizing the fact that some of our admin assistants are year-round employees, and some of them are just school calendar.
Yeah,
And
great.
that's where we're looking to make some changes, so we would have, albeit fewer year-round folks, more calendar, but make sure we have that coverage in the summertime, that we can do registrations, we can do athletics, we can do all those things.
And I think it's
Right
helpful
now,
to
it's very
hear
haphazard.
the total quantity of, because in my mind, I'm thinking there are 4, and then we're going to make one a supervisor of 3 others. It makes a lot more sense
Yeah.
for 1 and 17.25.
It sure does.
Yeah, okay.
And this is somebody, it's hard to supervise. So if we were to pick a principal, we'll pick Mr. McBride. Well, Mr. McBride has a different role than the administrative assistant. So to think that he has the expertise and the skill set to be able to give good, high-quality feedback, and to have somebody be able to learn and grow from that supervision and evaluation might be a bit of a challenge. But if somebody's an expert in all of those roles, they're going to be able to give really good, meaningful feedback and hopefully have all of our administrative assistants learn and grow in a positive way from that.
Thanks, Dan. Go ahead, Jared.
Superintendent took most of it. I think it's a great idea for especially the learning and growing of our staff. With this being a district employee, who would be this manager's manager?
So that's the other piece that we haven't finalized yet. Who is going to supervise this person? If I were to pick somebody right now, it would probably be Mr. Gross, but we have not had the discussion to identify who is going to have supervision of this person.
Yeah, I mean,
We don't know where they're going to go yet either. So I would say who's going to have oversight and where they're going to be. We're still
I
to
would
be
hope that
determined.
if it's a district employee, we aren't going to have a school administrator be the
No.
manager of this individual, because we know what would happen at that point.
Right.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think, it's going to be Kate or myself, or a combination of the both of us, based upon the fact that a lot of what we're dealing with is HR and business office related with all of these systems. So I think it's going to be, like I said,
Yeah,
me, Kate, or both of us.
And the other person that it could be,
Laura is
it
another
could be
one.
Laura
And
Taylor.
Laura.
And Laura doesn't have any of that direct supervision of staff, so this might be a good opportunity for her to have another
was the only one she
report for her. But so likely one of those people. I would also say Mrs. Kohler could be a possibility, but I think that's probably unlikely. But I would agree, it's not going to be a principal.
So, does this include New Boston?
So this
And
does not.
Should this be an SAU?
At this point, no.
So New
We would
Boston.
see some oversight with New Boston, but not to an extent that we would be providing services to them.
Okay.
So,
So
and
it's
New
just
Boston,
Goffstown.
yeah, New Boston's actually in a little bit of a unique circumstance that they have 3 administrative assistants at New Boston, and 2 of them are what are called principal secretaries, which in New Boston is slightly different than Goffstown. So they're already 2 of their 3 admin assistants are not in the collective bargaining unit already. So they have 2 people that are outside of that unit. So we're pretty confident that we can have that backup and redundancy in New Boston. The tertiary level would have to come from outside of the school.
Okay,
So,
all right. So we've talked a lot about this. Do we have a motion to approve this position?
I can make a motion that we direct administration to take one of the 18.25 administrative assistant positions and elevate it to a supervisor of the rest,
Thank you, Dan. Do I have-
pursuant to the plan we discussed this.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Caroline? Oh, sorry, I heard you.
That's fine. I can do it.
Go ahead. Did you have?
So this is not an additional staff person.
nope. Nope, not an additional staff person.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
Just came across my head. Is this an
Yeah.
hourly position or a salary position?
Scott?
I think it could be either. My preference would be salaried, but I think that's, to be determined by Kate. My gut is saying salary, but I'd have to see what, as
It's
an HR
currently
professional.
hourly, is it not?
It's currently, so all of the administrative assistants are hourly.
Right.
So I would presume it would remain hourly according to the motion, and if we wanted to modify it and needed to modify it, then we would come back to the board? Is that a reasonable?
Yeah, well, if that's what the motion states, I believe if it's a supervisor position, I think it should be a salary position. That's just my preference
Understand.
for following some of the things that we're good.
I don't know, are we prepared to make that decision tonight?
I don't
You said
think
you
so.
need to check with
You have to
Kate.
check with
I'd have
Kate.
to, yeah.
She has a job description all done. She's worked on this a lot. I think we haven't, the pieces that we haven't identified yet, where they're going to be located, who's going to be their supervisor, and then the costing at this point, we have not, we're not ready to
the
commit
costing per
numbers
se,
yet.
but
It
in
has to be
terms of-
cost neutral.
The costing is neutral.
Yep.
But in terms of salary versus hourly, that hasn't been yet determined. You know, my inclination would be salary, but again, that's Kate's, her area of expertise in terms of what she thinks, you know, is best. Typically supervisors are salaried.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second to.
Let me make the minutes, because I want the minutes to reflect this particular part of the conversation, and whether it's part of the motion or not, to find out whether once our HR director makes a determination that it is the board's preference that it be a salaried position. Does that make sense for everybody?
That works.
That's fair.
I think it can be an aside as part of the discussion, because Kate might come back and say no. And
Right.
so,
And she may have a good reason.
and yes, exactly.
Right.
So
So
I want
let's
to leave it
not-
open enough
Right.
where you come back and tell us what it is.
Okay,
Yep.
all
But you
right.
have the flexibility.
Right, exactly. Thanks, Dan. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. We've discussed this a lot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right.
Thank you.
Other business that may legally come before the meeting?
Brian, were you able to find out any more information about the field trips?
So
We're doing a lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna tell you, because I'm seeing them
Okay.
with regard to transportation. Are we having some in the schools? Yes, but we are doing a lot where we're taking buses too, so
And
I'd say
these
it's
are elementary and
75,
Mountain View ones?
25 right now.
Wendy, go ahead.
If I could also add, as I was thinking about your question at the last board meeting, one of the things I know we ran into at Mountain View is some of the field trips that we had done in the past. A lot of the places were having a hard time finding employees and weren't open during school hours as they had been before. A perfect example of that is in our 6th grade, we always go to Canopy Lake as part of a STEM unit that we do. And Canopy Lake didn't have enough employees, and they were only open for 2 days that were school hours to be able to bring kids last year. So in speaking with a lot of the administrators, that's something that we've been running into. So that's why you're seeing a lot of in-house field trips instead, having presenters come to us rather than going out, beyond obviously the transportation issues that we've had in the past as well.
And I would again assure the board that I have told all the principals, go on field trips, go wherever you want to go. No restrictions from our end. If we can figure out how to do the busing, full support.
Okay, I'm asking because parents have asked, so
Right.
I'm just,
Yeah,
Finding answers.
we'll make sure
Yeah.
that we'll put this on a upcoming principals agenda, just to make sure that the principals hear loud and clear that we are fully supportive of any and all field trips that they want to go on.
Thanks, Jane.
Fourth graders still going to the State House?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Yep.
Just sort of an on aside for people listening. I've gone on lots of field trips as an employee and supervisor and all that kind of stuff, and then as a volunteer before then. It has always shocked me how many of our children go no place outside of town.
It's true.
These children are in awe if they go to Boston. As a matter of fact, I had to take a few aside to tell them how to behave. They don't go anywhere. So, and I see the value, the tremendous value to all these kids, to going out and needing to learn appropriate behavior and courtesies that they're different from being in your school building. And these kids, huge numbers of them, don't have a clue. And I have always, and I will continue, to advocate for going out. I know it's more expensive than the ones coming in because of transportation, but the purpose is education. Okay, not a field day or something, you know. And I think it's extremely valuable to these children.
Absolutely.
Would it be possible, I don't know if the board's interested in it, in having a listing at some point by the end of the year of what grades go where or do something, so we know what they're doing? I mean, I have heard over the years, not this year again, my class isn't going anywhere. Well, that can't be the case, but that's what I hear from time to time. So I'm wondering if it's possible, if the board is interested in getting that.
We'd be happy to do that if the board is interested. I will tell you that I have denied no field trips. There's not a single one, not a single one. So
So
anyone
maybe
who's asked to go
mention
on a field trip,
Mention it at the principal's meeting and let us know what
we
this
will,
said.
we will, we will.
Go ahead, Shane.
This is separate from field trips. Are we done with that conversation?
Yes.
Do we anticipate a date for hearing about the high school lunch program again? I know we had asked for information by
Right.
April break, so it seems like it'll be after that now.
Yeah, I think we were targeting sometime in May, so
believe
one
that's
of the
what you
two
said.
meetings in May. I want to put this behind us, because obviously we need to plan for next year. We need to do duty rosters and
Right.
scheduling and all kinds of things.
Exactly,
So,
right.
Yeah, I think probably one of the meetings in May.
Okay,
Which
thank you.
probably will be the second meeting, would be my guess.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
And we
All right.
don't have non-public.
We don't?
We don't, so we had non-public if
Oh,
there
wait.
were, if there was anything else
Okay.
with regard to the staffing, but I think we're all set.
All right. Go ahead,
So-
Scott.
The beauty of technology, Kate's response is salaried.
Oh, is she watching?
Cool. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
All right. So anything else? All right,
Move
so
to
we'll
adjourn.
move to adjourn by Ellen,
Second.
by Dan.
Is there a non-public?
No, non-public.
Oh, I thought there was.
If we vote, then there's no non-public on the current
We had
motion.
held non-public if there were any questions about any of the staffing pieces.
Okay. This can wait to the next meeting then.
Okay.
All right. I thought we were going to have, that's why I hadn't.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, guys. Have a good night.